Hello, welcome to you and the Law, the program that breaks down the legal system and helps you understand your rights and responsibilities. Today we're going to talk about injunctions, the orders that courts issue to stop individuals or institutions from doing something, sometimes immediately. Why they exist, how they are granted, and what happens when they are misused. With me, I've got lawyer, legal practitioner. They call them Abitambedo. Welcome to you and the law.
Thank you, Mr. Moj.
So, we will start with the easy stuff. Definitions. What is an injunction?
So, injunctions, they're actually what I think are the court's most powerful tools or mechanisms. They are orders of court which direct a party, a person, or an institution to do something, which is a mandatory injunction, or to stop doing something, which is a prohibitory injunction. So a lot of people think injunctions are mostly just to stop, but they can actually compel someone to do something. Yes, and injunctions they're ordered when money is not enough as a remedy, and where the person seeking it says that there would be irreparable damage. So if you do not grant this injunction, everything is just going to be, I'm going to suffer irreparable damage and I will not be able to recover. And that's when the court grants an injunction.
That's it. Take us more into the situations in which the court will grant an injunction.
Okay.
Be it in business or land, issues of hurt, and stuff like that.
Okay. So before I do that, I think it's important to note that injunctions are equitable remedies. And what I mean by this is that they are orders of court exercised by the court by looking at principles of fairness and justice compared to a statutory remedy. For example, if you are an employee and your employer dismisses you in a way that you say is contrary to your rights or is in an illegal way or discriminatory way, then the Labor Act gives you a statutory remedy. So that means the law has already created something for you. Yes, so then the law gives you a right to reinstatement or compensation. But for injunctions, there's no law that says if you do this, you'll get an injunction. So the court is now invited to consider what is fair and what is proper in all the circumstances of the case. So that's what I mean by it is an equitable remedy. So you can have an injunction in land matters. So for example, if I say I own my land, I have my land, and Mr. Mboj is now trespassing and building on my land, and I want Mr. Mboj to stop. So I go to the court and say, Mr. Mboj is building on my land, and can you grant me an injunction until the case is over? Similarly, in business, you can, as an employer, for example, you can seek an injunction against an employee from leaking confidential information, or an employee can seek an injunction against an employer or shareholders against others from taking certain steps. There's also what we call freezing injunctions. For example, a business can be stopped from transferring their assets or monies from locally to abroad if they're in court. Because, sometimes people like to hide their assets or their monies, because if judgment is enforced, then it's like, oh, we don't have any money to execute the judgment. So then this type of injunction will stop that. Some people also seek injunctions in defamation cases. So where you don't want someone to say something that's not true about you. A party may seek an injunction, but it might be tricky because the Constitution gives us freedom of speech. And that includes the, freedom of press and media. So then you'll have to now bring forward to the court all the circumstances and then convince the court, because you're asking the court to exercise its discretion, right? It means looking at all the circumstances of the case and you're saying, listen, I think it's fair and it's convenient for you to grant this injunction because if not, so and so would happen to me.
I wonder, is there any pattern that has emerged about the most common cases?
Yeah, definitely land.
Land.
Definitely
Easily.
land. Easily. We have so many Injunctions. And you know there are many types of injunctions.
Yes,
Right.
we'll get into that.
Okay,
So
we'll
tell
get
me
into
about it.
that.
That's going to be our
But
second
it's
point.
definitely land. We have so many land cases in which, you know, we have injunctions and then we have difficulties enforcing them, or we do get them and then that's it and it's great.
That's it. I do hear also this term called stay of execution. Is it the
Yes.
same as, what's the difference? I wonder.
So an injunction is usually sought for by a plaintiff. The
Yeah.
plaintiff is the one instituting the suit.
All right.
So now, okay, let's talk about land.
All right.
If I come to the court and I say, this is my land, can you declare to everybody that it's my land? It makes sense for me to be the one also saying that whilst you are declaring that it's my land, can you stop everyone from trying to do anything on my land? Now, stay of execution is when stay of execution relates to the judgment. Judgment is the decision that the court gives after the case is over, right? So if the court now says, Mr. Mboj, you have to pay Ms. Tambadu 500,000 today or whenever, right? Now Mr. Mboj applies for a stay of execution, means the judgment is not put into play. Because if the judgment is enforced and Mr. Mboj does not pay Ms. Tambadu,
Yes.
now the sheriff is asked to go and look for Mr. Mboj's properties to get that 500,000. So then you ask for a stay of execution to put that on hold, because usually you would have filed an appeal to the Court of Appeal. So stay of execution is just to pause
things.
to pause the judgment.
That's it, stay.
Yes,
The
stay.
secret word.
Exactly,
So
stay.
now to the different types of injunctions.
Yeah, so we have interim. So interim injunction, think emergency, right? So, but actually, an injunction, you must always have a case before you can get an injunction.
Okay.
For example, you cannot just file for an injunction today. There has to be an existing case already.
All right.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah. So first you have interim injunction, and that's emergencies. So for example, okay, let's go back to the land issue. You have your land, and then you notice that somebody has come with his bulldozers, he's come with his tractors, his caterpillars, and he's breaking down your fence. You need an injunction today, right? Yesterday, you needed the injunction since yesterday. So then you seek an interim injunction. So what this means is just you and the court. The other side is not there.
All right.
Because it's an emergency. You need the court to preserve the status quo. Like before they had come in, the court has to preserve how it was. I was peacefully enjoying my land. So I want it to remain like that.
So this is a temporary.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
It's temporary.
Yeah.
So the court will order it until a later date. So maybe for 7 days, for 10 days, for 2 weeks, until you file now what is called an interlocutory injunction. And you know how I said the interim injunction is just you and the court?
Yes.
The interlocutory now, you have to file and send it to the person that you are seeking an injunction against. So if I was the one on your land, when you get an interim injunction, I will not be there. It's just you and the court. But once you now get an interlocutory injunction, I have notice. So now we both come to the court and we argue. And then the court decides whether, in all the circumstances, whether the court should grant an injunction against me or it shouldn't.
So is the interim the same as ex parte? I hear about this term called ex parte. So that is without the other party.
Exactly.
So you can get an injunction even if the other party is not involved because of the emergency nature of.
Exactly. And because the courts will not deprive another person of their rights without hearing them, that's why it's for a short period of time. So this second one, the interlocutory, it's sought for the period of the case. So it's if you get it today, it will be until the case is over.
That's it.
Yeah.
All right. If a court grants the injunction and it is proven later that it was unnecessary.
Yes.
No.
Yeah, unnecessary.
So, yes. So what remedies would exist for a client, for somebody who's falling on the other side of that?
Yeah, like unfortunately for you, they granted the injunction. Now what? So usually, there are conditions you have to satisfy
Nice.
before you get an injunction. You know how I said it's an equitable remedy. So the court is going to think about what's fair. So that fairness is balanced between the person seeking an injunction and the person who an injunction is made against. So usually, the person seeking an injunction will give an undertaking in damages. That means I undertake that if at the end of this action, it is shown that the injunction should not have been granted, I promise that I will pay X, the amount of damage suffered by the person. You understand?
Yes.
So if I was trying to build and you got an injunction against me, I've lost my materials, my workers, my contracts amounting to 100,000, you will give an undertaking in damages. And then so if at the end it's found out that the injunction shouldn't have been granted, then you pay me.
I wonder how often do the courts grant these costs? I wonder.
The courts grant costs. The courts will grant
Awards for
costs.
costs,
Yeah,
for wrongly granted injunctions. Do we have such cases?
in the cases that I have been in,
Mm-hmm.
have they been concluded? They've not been concluded, so
Alright.
to say, but
In principle, that's what
in
should
principle,
happen.
you should pay. You're undertaking, so you're saying that I am going to pay this, and you're before the court, so you should pay. The problem is now getting that money and executing. So it usually will require other steps to be taken. You'll have to execute for the costs, or whatever amount it is. Yeah.
That's it. But within the context of defamation cases, and you will know for obvious reasons, with lawyers, we are always sort of victims, really. So, what sort of cases do we get regarding defamation cases and injunctions? What sort of examples?
I actually have not come across a defamation case with an injunction, but ordinarily it could be that you have a defamation case or a libel case, which is that you take someone to court for making false statements about you that have affected their reputation or affected them in other instances. So an injunction could be applicable in these cases to stop them from doing that. I have not seen it in the Gambia, though. And as a democratic society, I definitely think that such an application or such a court order would it might cause commotion because of, like I said, the issue with freedom of speech and whatnot. So I'm yet to see that. We have been in some defamation cases, but injunctions did not arise in those cases.
That's it. But I also wonder, though, what kind of evidence do I take to the court? As it were, what do I need to tell? What information do I need to tell the judge, as it were, to grant me an injunction? It's not anything just I want to say,
Bullen,
is it?
you have an injunction. Are you trying to seek free legal advice? I think you're trying to seek free legal advice.
No, I'm just thinking about the viewers. So they might be interested in questions like this.
Am I supposed to be looking over here? Where am I supposed to be looking?
Look at me. Have your conversation.
Okay,
Absolutely.
We're
Yes.
also talking to the viewer. So the thing about injunctions is there are things you need to satisfy. So one, when you bring your application, you have to satisfy the court that you have a substantial issue to be tried. Meaning, you're actually here, you have a case. You have a legal right to protect, and you have a substantial issue to be tried. For example, if I come and say, hey, court, please grant me this injunction. This is my land. Meanwhile, I haven't brought any documents to show that I own the land. It's not clear that there's been somebody else trespassing on my land. It's like, is there really an issue? So you have to show the court that there's a substantial issue to be tried, that you have a legal right. And then there's something that is called balance of convenience. Means, so it's a balance, right? So you have to show the court that, balance of convenience, that you are the one that's going to suffer. Basically, you will be at a loss if the injunction is not granted, right? And then you'll also have to show that you will suffer irreparable damage, so such that money is not adequate. Money will not be enough. So if I've had this land, I've invested on my land, and then you take my land, you sell my land, I don't want money. It's so you have to explain all of that in your application.
Who enforces the injunction if the other party ignores it?
Ignores it.
Yeah.
So an injunction is an order of court,
Exactly. Yeah.
right? Exactly. And if you don't comply with an order of court, then you're held in contempt. So several steps have to be taken.
Exactly. Take us through these steps. Then what do I do?
But I don't know who Mr. Moj is coming for, but he's coming for you. So we actually have several cases
All right.
in which injunctions are not being obeyed. So these are prohibitory injunctions, the one that say
Just don't do it.
don't do this. So imagine, so you have cases where there's land and then the court says don't do this, you're not allowed to interfere with the land, but then several people continue to go on the land, sell the land, advertise it for sale, and it's a big mess. So in that case, you bring contempt proceedings. So contempt is a willful disobedience of a court order, right? But the order has to be directed at that person. So if the injunction is against Mr. X and Mr. X is aware that there's an injunction against him and he's not obeying with the injunction, then Mr. Y, who obtained the injunction, files for contempt. So contempt is another proceeding. So you go to the court and say that this court made this order and asked this person to not do a thing, and they're doing that thing. And so contempt is punishable by committal, prison. So it's serious. So it's kind of now like another case within the case. So then what happens is that person now has to come back to court, and you now have your contempt proceedings. They have to, what we call, show cause. Explain to the court why you should not be put in prison because you have disobeyed the court's order.
If I do not have money to get a lawyer, do I have legal aid if there's an injunction against me?
Wait, let me take that again.
There's an injunction against me.
Yes.
But I need to do things through a lawyer. They go to court, isn't it? And all of that. If I do not have, I can't afford a lawyer.
Yes.
Then what happens? Can I have legal aid? I don't know.
You mean in the country?
Yes, in this country.
Yes, I mean, yes, there's legal aid. I know that there's the National Agency for Legal Aid, but NALA.
Yes.
You're right. But I think they
have their
legal
conditions.
Aid for capital.
So that's
I'm not sure about injunctions.
So,
you might just have to, use the free legal advice you got here, or or ask someone to assist you in court. But at the end of the day, like, we're talking on the basis of these are not yet final injunctions. Like, this is now the interlocutory. You would just have to go to the court. Perhaps you have to go by yourself and explain to the court why the injunction should not be granted. The only difficulty is that, there are formalities. You have to file your application, your affidavit, and there are certain things that have to be there by the law. So as a lay person, it might be difficult for you. So I definitely advise you at least beg one of the lawyers
to do that. But I do hear some criticism that some people might use injunctions to delay an investigation, for instance, or they might use it to shield powerful actors. One wonders what mechanisms are there to protect certain misuse of these.
So what was the first one? To delay certain investigation?
Yeah, delay something. I do not know. You might have a bully with journalists who knows that we are going to publish something. They're scared. They run to the court
and get an injunction.
Get an injunction against that publication, that sort of thing. So one wonders, within the law, what mechanisms are there to prevent abuse, that sort of thing?
So like I said, injunctions start with interim, right?
Yes.
And you're not there at that time. So the hope is that the adjudicator of the court understands the law and knows that this person really has to convince me so as to make such an order that is going to deprive the other person or stop them, well, affect them anyways, and they have not been heard. So I feel like the court is the first safeguard, and if it gets to the court and there's an injunction, you now have an opportunity now to argue the other injunction that's going to last for a longer time. And also in some cases, you can apply to set aside the first injunction. to say that it was not, that the grounds on which it was ordered did not exist. Yeah, so you can apply for that to be set aside. You can file an appeal against the order. Let's say it's interlocutory, you can appeal. So that's what we call, no, sorry, that's not injunction pending appeal, but you can appeal against the order.
All right.
Or you can also apply for it to be set aside or for it to be discharged. Sometimes the injunctions will be ordered pending the doing of certain things. And if those things are not done by a certain date, you can apply for it to be discharged. You had mentioned something. Did it seem to imply maybe injunctions sought by the government? You had said something.
Yeah,
like
but yes, there's a general perception that powerful people or whatever might misuse
their power.
misuse their powers and sort of trying to stop or make small people, do or stop doing certain things. But
well, like I said initially, the court is the first safeguard to that. So you hope that if a certain person is seeking an injunction against you in a way that compromises your constitutional rights, then the court is also aware to not grant such an injunction. But importantly, and what I think is important to note is that you cannot get an injunction against the state.
All right. That's an interesting one.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Definitely interesting. Because like I just explained, so if the state was the one barreling into Mr. Mboje's compound, the law doesn't allow you to get an injunction against the state.
Now, that's an interesting one, but would there be anywhere that I can go for remedy if it is wrong? Possibly there are other instruments, other legal instruments perhaps that one could use. Is that it?
So yes, you can, for example, let's say you have taken the state to court, depending on the institution, which institution it is, you're in court. The case will proceed as is. But the point is that as it is proceeding, you cannot get an injunction. Depending on the circumstances of the case, there might be a remedy here or there, but an injunction is just not available against the government of the Gambia.
So where a lawyer is found to have acted in bad faith, what are the disciplinary actions? One can see that perhaps the client will get redress from the courts, but would there be any penalties
for the lawyer?
Yes.
The court can impose penalties,
right.
But you have to show that acted in bad faith. Because you know how I said injunctions are equitable remedies?
Absolutely. Yeah.
One of the things that the courts will consider is the conduct of the parties. You have some cases in which, unfortunately, people are dishonest and, they're a bit fraudulent. For example, forging affidavits. And sometimes it's almost like, what if the lawyer is found in that mess as well? So it can happen. And so the court, they can order costs against you. And depending, sometimes a lawyer's misconduct could be so detrimental to the client. And the client will report the lawyer to the General Legal Counsel.
That's what I was about to mention. Where does the General Legal Counsel come
so
in?
The General Legal Counsel is there to also regulate the actions of lawyers. And it also is like a case for a remedy process for clients and their lawyers. So it would be just like a regular case. You come, you put your case forward, and then there's a decision at the end.
Yes. We're sort of coming towards the end.
The end?
Yes.
We just started, Mr. Mboje.
You know how it is? But when you look at the whole system, you've been sort of working in it. If you were to suggest reforms, be it procedural, institutional, even cultural, if you know what I mean, what might that be? So that, the courts can work more efficiently and more urgently when it needs to. As you said, sometimes it needs to act urgently.
Yeah.
What do you say?
I remember one time a colleague and I were having a discussion, and so we noticed that sometimes you have a case that is so urgent, right? And like I said, you cannot just file for an injunction. And that causes a bit of a difficulty because time is of the essence. And usually in cases where, it's so time sensitive, you would find that there are a lot of papers to get through and you really need to get your case ready. So that includes drafting your papers, list of documents, and that's all wasting time. So I would actually suggest being able to have injunctions, I don't know, maybe in a certain timeline before the suit is filed, but it doesn't always have to be necessary that an action is filed, because sometimes I feel like it's counterproductive. It's a bit difficult sometimes, but you don't have a choice.
That's it. So finally, I think we've got a minute here. If you want our viewers to remember just one practical thing about injunctions, what would it be?
One practical thing,
Yes.
Mr. Mbo's like what?
Well, we've mentioned injunctions in all sorts of areas. In the end, it's value, as it were,
It's value
in the legal system.
in the legal system.
As it were. I suppose that's really what I'm talking about here.
I believe, as I started, that I think we're talking about one of the most powerful mechanisms the court has. I think that an injunction is there for you to protect your rights. If you want to, like, that's definitely, for me, in my opinion, I think it's so effective. I think it's so valuable. If you're thinking of one of the remedies to protect your rights, it's an injunction. Be it, maybe you're divorced, and you have that a lot in the Gambia, where you have a divorced couple and then the wife has to leave the home. But she's invested so much into the home. And perhaps now the husband wants her out and wants to now start selling the home or whatever. She can get an injunction.
Sure, she can get an injunction. That's it.
An injunction is there to protect your rights.
That's very interesting, that example. I love that. And it would apply in businesses as well.
Yeah.
There are so many businesses around, a bit informal, but that's it in a business sense as well.
Yeah.
One can invoke or go to the courts for
injunctions are there to protect your rights.
Protect your rights.
Yes.
That's a good way of ending it. Fantastic. I enjoyed that conversation, Abitam Bedu. Thank you very much. Viewers, join us next time as we sink our teeth into aspects of our law to digest so that we know how to apply them. That's the only way we protect justice. Thank you very much. Until next time, I'm Mahmoud Mbouch.